Hey guys, so today's video is all about this beauty right here. This is Athr Beauty's newest eyeshadow palette launch, the Desert Sunset palette. So I'm going to be doing 5 looks with this. This is the 5th look that I did, and also going to be sharing my review and just my overall thoughts on it. So this is what she looks like. So pretty. This is a 10 color palette. It's got 4 matte shades and 6 shimmers, and within those shimmers there's I think 2 different finishes. 3 of them have more of a metallic kind of finish, and then the 3 here in the middle have more of like a sheer base to them, and they've got kind of a glimmery sparkle rather than that smooth pearlescent metallic kind of finish. This palette was sent to me in PR by the brand, but I was under no obligation to post about it, and as always, all of my thoughts and opinions are my own. One thing that I love about Athr is that they're very mindful about their packaging, and their palettes are designed so that this outer packaging is fully recyclable. So once you're finished with this palette, you can pop out the pans, and the outer packaging is all paper, so it can be recycled in your regular curbside recycling. They have recently rebranded, so their old palettes, this is their old rose quartz palette, had an elastic band for closure. They don't use magnets because that would make the packaging harder to recycle, so that was how they used to be packaged. And with their new palettes, they've gotten rid of that elastic band and they just kind of close like that. So there's no like super secure closure, there's no magnets or anything, but I actually feel like, considering this is all done with cardboard, I'm pretty impressed with how smoothly it opens and closes. I mean, I'm able to open and close it very easily, and it does feel pretty secure. I feel like if you had this in a makeup bag, it's not likely to just open and close super easily, but it's definitely not as secure as like a magnetic closure or even the elastic band that they used to have. I feel like there is probably a better way to do this, but for now, I actually do, I think, prefer this over the elastic, just because it was always kind of a hassle to undo the elastic and then put it back. So I'm happy with the new packaging. It's also worth noting they don't use mirrors in their packaging because, again, those aren't really recyclable, so I don't mind that. I have a million mirrors in other makeup products that I have, and I also have a mirror in front of me when I get ready. But in case that matters to you, that is something to note. One other thing that I noticed immediately when I saw this was that it has some definite similarities with another palette in my collection, the Anastasia Beverly Hills Sultry palette, which was limited edition. It's no longer sold, but there are definitely some similarities between the two. I will have comparison swatches at the end of this video. I did want to point that out, but that was one of the things I was curious to see how it really compared, and I do think there are some definite differences, but we'll talk more about that at the end. So I think that's everything I wanted to get out of the way in this intro. Let's go ahead and hop into the 5 looks. Alright, so for all of these looks, I will already have my eyelids primed with the Urban Decay Primer Potion. And for this first look, I'm going to go in, let's see, I'm going to start out with this lightest matte shade here called Desert Sand. It's just this medium kind of camel brown color. Then I'm going to go in with the next darkest brown called Sedona with a slightly smaller crease brush and just target that a little bit more directly into my crease. Then I'm going in with the deepest matte brown called Mesquite, using a small detail pencil brush to carve out the outer corner. I do feel like that deepest brown is going on a little patchy. I'm not sure if maybe like a different brush would work better. I'm trying a different brush. This is like a little bit of more of a shader brush that has a little bit of fluff to it. Okay. That's better. Maybe such a targeted pencil brush just doesn't work super well with this shadow. For my lid shade, I'm just really dying to use this shade right here called Afterglow. It's like this purpley mauvey duochrome looking shade. I gotta use it. So this is gonna be our lid shade. I'm just gonna apply this with my finger. No glitter primer today. I wanna just see how these shadows perform without that first. That is pretty. All right, for my inner corner, I'm gonna use this light pearly color called Twilight. I'm taking that in a little bit in like the inner part of my crease as well. Then I'm gonna use Desert Sand again as my lower liner on a smudge brush. Then I'm gonna take a little bit of Mesquite, the deepest brown on the lower lash line as well, just kind of on the outer part. I am very happy to say I got minimal to no fallout on my cheeks, so that I really am happy about. I'm just going in with a dark brown pencil liner. This is the CoverGirl Exhibitionist Kohl eyeliner pencil in rich brown, and just applying that across my upper lash line, and then I'm winging that out. Alright, for my lip color, I'm just wearing my Milani Keep It Full lip gloss in Soft Rose, my Lips But Better nude shade, and that is look number 1. Alright, so for look number 2, I want to use these coral and peachy shades here in the middle, and maybe some of the golden shades as well. So I'm going to start out with this bright matte coral shade called Desert Coral in my crease. Ooh, that's what I'm talking about. That shade has great color payoff. That was one tap of my brush into that shade. That's how much it gave me. And I even like tapped off a little bit of the excess on my brush. So nice. These mattes are, I will say, a little bit powdery. You know, you do get a little bit of kickback with them. I personally don't mind that because I find that that often just means that they're more blendable. For the outer corner, I'm going to take a little bit of Sedona, this sort of reddish, warm, deep brown. I just want to define my outer corner a little bit with that shade. Then I'm going back to the fluffy crease brush that I used first and blending all of that out. Alright, so for my lid, I want to use both of these shades, the rose gold and the gold. So I'm going to start with the shade Sunset, the rose gold, on the center of my lid. Again, not using any glitter primer today. I may do that for one of the later looks, but I really just want to see how these shadows perform without that because I know not everybody owns a glitter primer. I really like how that shade went on with a finger. It's different than a lot of other rose golds because the base of it is kind of a vibrant, like peachy corally pink, and then it's got that gold shift to it. So it really is like a duochrome in that way. It's more pinky coral than a lot of rose golds. And then on the inner third of my lid, I'm going to go in with the shade Sunrise, which is this other gold in the middle here. And this gold has like a peachy undertone to it, so I think it'll go really pretty next to that rose gold. I love this look. Oh, those two shimmers fade into each other so nicely. And again, I'm getting very minimal fallout, at least with the way that I apply these shades. I'm really not getting much fallout at all on my cheeks, so that's awesome. Okay, I turned my ring light on because it's getting a little dark in here. It's getting very cloudy outside. Ooh, yeah, now I can really see that. Wow, okay, that is so vibrant. Okay, so I feel like this look is a great example of what this palette can do that the ABH Sultry palette cannot. I could use similar shades from the ABH Sultry palette, but this look would not have turned out nearly as warm and vibrant. So I think that's kind of the difference. I think especially like this coral shade here is much more saturated than the ABH palette. So, you know, they do have similar shades, but I feel like so far both the looks that I've done have been very different from anything I've ever done with Sultry. Like yesterday, again, I'm going to take the shade Twilight on my inner corner, that pearly color. Alright, now I'm going in with this CoverGirl Kohl eyeliner pencil in rich brown on my upper lash line, just keeping it very, very close to the lash line. So I winged that pencil liner out a little bit with the angled brush, and then I do want to go over that and kind of smoke that out a little bit with this deepest matte brown Mesquite again on a slightly bigger angled liner brush. I'm just going over it and then smudging it out a little bit. And taking a little bit of that same shadow on my lower lash line as liner, very light amount. Alright, so that is pretty much the finished look. On the lips, I have on the Mented Peach Lip Pencil and the BK Beauty lipstick in Kindness. It's for a nice kind of soft peachy nude. And I love this look. I love the way these shades work together and blended together. They all work so cohesively together, and I just love this kind of sunset vibe going on here. So that is look number 2. All right, time for look number 3. I actually just washed off look number 2, sadly. As much as I love that look, I didn't want to wash it off, but I've re-primed my eyelids. For look number 3, I kind of want to try out a one shadow look, or like maybe I'll use a couple shades, but I want to mainly feature one shadow. and that is this shade right here called Eternal, this taupe shade. I feel like this shade is going to make a beautiful one shadow look. I'm just taking a shader brush from e.l.f. and I'm gonna apply this all over my lid. So I'm just taking a bare fluffy crease brush and blending that out. I haven't picked up any other shadows on this brush. So that is that shade completely on its own. It totally looks like I'm wearing other shadows in my crease, but that is just that shade. I like how it really reflects the light while it's on my lid, but then in the crease, it does create a really pretty shadow and look very dimensional. So that is so pretty. Now, I'm not gonna stop there, but you totally could. You could just apply some mascara, maybe a little eyeliner, and call it a day. But I do wanna take a little bit of this shade right here called Golden Hour. It's a slightly more greenish gold than the one in the middle. And this one has a different texture than that one. This one is more of a pearly metallic finish, whereas the middle one is more of like a sparkly topper kind of shade. So this, I'm just gonna actually tap on the center of my lid with a finger. I like how with this palette you can kind of go in a couple different directions. You can go very corally pink, and you can also go very olivey and taupey. So a lot of variety packed into this little palette. So next I'm going to take some of Mesquite, again the deepest matte brown, and use that as my upper liner. Just doing a soft kind of smoky liner up top. And I actually still have some of that brown left on my lower lash line from the previous look that I didn't fully remove. So that's going to be our lower liner again. I'm going to take just a tiny bit more of that to redefine it. And then again, taking Twilight on my inner corner. This just makes such a perfect inner corner highlight. Just complements any look. Alright, so that is the finished look number 3. Nice and simple, taupey olive kind of look. Again, you totally could have made this a one and done look with just that one shade, but I felt the need to keep going because I just wanted to play with a few more shades. But on the lips, I have on the Jordana lip liner in Rock and Rose, a little bit of the e.l.f. Seriously Satin Lipstick in Cream in the center, and then top that with the Milani lip gloss in Soft Rose. This would make a great, simple, everyday look for work or school. So that is look number 3. Alright, so for look number 4, I kind of want to focus on mostly these outer shades. So I'm going to start off with this medium matte brown called Desert Sand. That's going to be my crease color. And notice, because this palette doesn't have a matte cream color in it, I haven't been setting my eyelid primer, and I feel like these mattes have been blending just fine without that step, so I don't really feel like I'm missing that kind of shade in this palette. I mean, I could always pull in that kind of eyeshadow from another palette or just my face powder if I wanted to, but I haven't even felt the need to. So then I'm going to take Sedona, the reddish dark brown, into my crease. Then going in with the deepest matte brown and going to kind of carve out my outer corner with that shade. And I'm using kind of like a slightly fluffy shader brush for this. This is the BK Beauty 203. I feel like this brush works better with this shade than like a really dense pencil brush. It's kind of what I learned the first time I used it, so. Alright, then I'm just going back to that fluffy crease brush and blending everything out. I still feel like that deepest brown is going on a teeny tiny bit patchy. It's better with this brush than with the dense pencil brush that I used the first day, but I feel like I am kind of getting those little lines where it doesn't want to cling to my skin. That sometimes happens, so I'm just kind of building up on those areas to even it out. It's really the only shade in this palette that I've had any issues with so far though. And it's really not too bad. So far I've only used this light pearly shade Twilight as an inner corner highlight. Today I do want to try that out on my lid just to give it a little bit more of a chance to shine. So I'm going to pick that up on a shader brush and pack that onto kind of the inner part of my lid. Then I also want to take some of Golden Hour, this shade right here, on kind of the center of my lid. Actually, I just want to pick that up on my finger. Actually taking a little bit more of Twilight on my finger too. I just prefer applying shimmers with the finger, honestly. Then I am taking a little bit more of Twilight around my inner corner. Then I'm going to use Mesquite as my liner on both the top and bottom. I'm also going to tightline a little bit on the upper lash line with my CoverGirl Kohl eyeliner in Rich Brown. Alright, so look number 4 is complete. For the lip, I have on the Estate Lip Thirst in Pink Pony that's in my makeup basket. It's this nice kind of cool toned mauve-y pink. Another great everyday neutral kind of taupey olive kind of look. Yeah, I'm really liking the kind of olive undertone of a lot of these neutral shades in here. Something a little bit different from just your standard like browns and beiges. Yeah, this is another great kind of everyday neutral but still glam look that I think anybody could wear. Alright, look number 5, it is the same day as look 4, but I just washed off my eye makeup and I'm ready to dive into the final look. So today I kind of want to focus mostly on these 4 center shades because I've done a lot of like brownish, taupey, olivey looks. I want to play around with these corals again, but in a different way than before. So I am going to start out the look with Desert Coral, the matte coral shade, and just kind of lightly dust that into my crease. I'm also going to take just a little bit of that shade in my outer corner. I'm not going to go in with any browns today. I want this to be a very bright look, so I think this is going to be the only matte shade I use today. Alright, next I'm going to tap a little bit of my NYX glitter primer onto my lid. Just the part of the lid where I'm going to be applying shimmers. Okay, so I actually kind of want to take some of this bottom shade, Afterglow, on my lid. I know it looks very purpley mauve in the pan, but it actually does have a little bit of like a pinky coral shift to it. And it's actually much brighter because the base is so sheer. It's actually much brighter on the eyes than it looks in the pan. So I'm just going to take first a dab of that. See how much pinker that is? And just tap that onto this kind of center part of my lid. Then I'm taking some of Sunset, the pinky gold shade, and applying that to the inner third. Kind of just creating a little gradient effect with these shimmers. Yeah, I mean, these shimmers looked beautiful without the glitter primer underneath, but I do feel like it's just bringing out a little bit more even of that glimmery effect that they have. But they really were stunning without too. Like these shimmers are very glimmery. Then I'm taking a little bit of Sunrise, the gold here in the middle, and just tapping that on the very inner part of my lid. I'm actually going to use that as my inner corner shade as well. Taking a little bit more of that on a small pencil brush and tapping that into the inner corner. Taking just a teeny tiny bit more of the matte coral and packing just a little bit of that on the outer corner again, just to kind of redefine that. That shade really is so bright and saturated. It's like a hot coral. Like the color payoff of that shade is insane. Okay, so I changed shirts to go a little bit better with this look. This is a very bright, kind of like springy, summery, fiery look. I love it. I will definitely be doing this look again. I can't get enough of these corals. I'm thrilled with, especially that matte coral. It is so vibrant and intense. And on the lip, I've got on the Physicians Formula Healthy Lip in Tulip Treatment. So that is the finished look for look number 5. This and the other coral look that I did are my 2 favorites for sure, but I will definitely be recreating this one. So those were all 5 of the looks with the Desert Sunset palette. Which one was your favorite? I'm torn between this one and the other coral and peachy look. So overall, you guys, I'm loving this palette. I'm loving it. I liked every look that I did with it. I love how there's really 2 main directions you can go with this. You can go very bright and coral and pinky, or you can go very like golden olive. I feel like you don't often get those 2 wrapped into one palette. I think Desert Sunset was the perfect name for this. You can get so many kind of sunset, golden hour kind of looks with this palette, but you've also got some great staple neutral shades that you could throw together for an easy, everyday, like work appropriate look. So I am loving this palette. Now, like I mentioned at the beginning, the first thing I noticed when I opened this up was that that looks like the ABH Sultry palette. And now that I've done 5 looks with this palette, I feel like I can really kind of pull apart the differences. I'm gonna put some comparison swatches on the screen right now. And I feel like the main differences that I noticed between the two palettes is that the Athr palette leans much warmer than Sultry. The Sultry palette has kind of both warm and cool tones, but it definitely leans cooler. Like it has a silver, a gray, a black, and this palette doesn't have any of those. And the warm tone shades in this palette I feel like are even a little bit warmer and a little bit more saturated. So like the coral in here, that was the shade that jumped out at me as one that really lined up with Sultry, but I do feel like the Athr coral shade is much brighter, whereas the Sultry one is definitely more muted. And even like the rose gold in here has much more of a corally bright undertone to it, while the Sultry one again is more muted. And yeah, so I feel like most of the looks I did with this palette are ones that I never would have done with Sultry, and there are some looks with Sultry I've done that I don't think I could ever get with this palette. So they're definitely different. I feel like if you already have Sultry and you prefer more muted and or cool tones, you probably don't need this one. But if you always wanted Sultry and you were hoping that this would be like a really close dupe to it, I don't think they're dupes whatsoever. But you can definitely get some very similar shades with this palette that Sultry has. So I feel like, personally, I'm happy to have both in my collection, but if you are more of a minimalist, you might not feel the need to have both. But I'm loving this palette so far. I feel like they did an amazing job. I love how it's so compact. It's only 10 shades, but within it there's so much variety, and the saturation and the pigmentation of these shades is really top-notch. I have the Rose Quartz palette. At least with the old Rose Quartz palette, I don't feel like there are any overlapping shades here. And the only other Athr palette I have is the Ametrine Quad, which also, there are no overlapping shades. So in case you were wondering about either of those are the only other 2 Athr palettes that I currently own. There really are no dupes between them. The only 2 that I thought might be dupes were this shade and this shade, but those 2 are actually quite different. That's the one from Rose Quartz, that's the one from Desert Sunset, and there they are swatched. Top one is Desert Sunset, bottom one is Rose Quartz. The Desert Sunset one has a much more corally base to it, whereas the Rose Quartz one has more of like a sheer kind of golden base, so very different. Even though they look similar in the pan, they actually look very different on the skin. And I also feel like because these shades are so rich and pigmented, this palette could work for a wide range of skin tones. It works for my fair skin, but I think someone with a deeper skin tone could also really enjoy this palette because they really do have rich color payoff. So I am so thrilled with this palette, truly. The only negative I picked up on was that I did have a little bit of trouble with this deepest brown shade, occasionally looking a little bit patchy. I found that the best way to apply that to my outer corner was with a slightly kind of fluffier shader brush versus what I normally would use for that kind of shade. I normally use this kind of pencil brush for that, but I found that didn't work quite as well. I needed something with a little more fluff to it that was still dense, but not quite as dense and small. It wasn't a lack of pigmentation with this shade, it's definitely very pigmented, but it was more that it didn't want to go on perfectly evenly, but I was still able to work with it and even it out, and it really wasn't that big of a deal to me. But that was the only shade I had any sort of trouble with. I also think that with this palette, the glitter primer is optional. I did use that for today's look, of course, but I feel like just applying those center shades with a finger gives me as much like sparkle and color payoff as I need. The glitter primer just takes it up another notch, whereas the center shades in the original Rose Quartz palette, I feel like I have to use a glitter primer underneath those, so I feel like they may have improved the formula a little bit of their duochrome kind of topper shades. I'm just really pleased with it, so I am going to be loving this palette. I feel like this is especially going to be so much fun to reach for in the spring and summer. So I think that's just about everything I have to say about the new Athr Beauty Desert Sunset palette. I am very happy with it. I think they did an amazing job. Hopefully this helped you decide if this would make a worthy addition to your makeup collection or not. If this video helped you out, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you've not already. I'd love to see you again soon, and hopefully I will talk to you very soon in my next video. Bye!